ladies and gentlemen, and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am your host, Brett Murphy, and for today's video, it is going to be another Cinema Showdown. And for today's showdown, it is going to be Michael Myers versus Leatherface. Now, these characters are two of the most well-known slashers in the entire horror genre. In fact, they are some of the most well-known horror pop culture icons in the world, with both of them coming from long-running franchises dating way back to the 70s. Which of them is the superior character? Before we get into the actual showdown, if you enjoy these Cinema Showdown versus style videos, I have an entire playlist dedicated to all of my Cinema Showdowns. So be sure to check that out, and I guarantee you'll find something you like. And with all that being said, let's hop right into things. Round 1. Origin Story. Now, there are many different versions of Michael Myers' origin story due to the various continuities and timelines. In some instances, we don't ever really know why Michael Myers did what he did when he was 6 years old. In other instances, he was possessed by a cult, or Laurie was his sister, so on and so forth. The one instance, however, where we get a full-blown deep dive backstory is Rob Zombie's 2007 Halloween remake. And in that, Michael Myers' backstory is surprisingly engaging, and likely the best aspect of both of the Rob Zombie movies. I love how they incorporated elements from notorious stories of some of the real world's most infamous serial killers. How he grew up in a broken home, was an outcast, suffered verbal and physical abuse, started off by torturing and killing small animals, and eventually one day just snapped. After doing the deed for the first time, he doesn't really understand what he did wrong. He doesn't remember any of it. So when he is eventually admitted into Dr. Loomis's care, he doesn't understand why he can't go home. He becomes fixated on wearing masks, and he begins to talk less and less as he grows bigger and bigger, and spirals into madness all the way down the rabbit hole until eventually turning into the Michael Myers that we all know, love, and fear. When it comes to Leatherface's origin story, at best, it's a mediocre hour-and-a-half long movie called Leatherface, with a bad twist that I don't think anyone really bought into. The rest of the origin stories typically boil down to no origin story at all, or it is usually just guy born into cannibalistic and possibly incestuous family. Going back to the Leatherface movie, I admit I do admire what they tried to do. They gave us this Bud character who perfectly looks the part of a young Leatherface, and used him as this red herring only to reveal that it has been this Jackson character all along, who would go on and grow up to eventually be the titular Leatherface. I also want to commend actor Sam Strike for doing a damn good job emulating the character's movements and mannerisms when in Leatherface mode. However, I just don't buy this guy growing up to be this guy. I get that he got shot in the face and he can't talk anymore, but how does that translate to him making masks out of human flesh and acting as Leatherface does in the other movies, even in this timeline? It just simply does not make any sense to me at all. So for me, there is a clear-cut winner for this first round, and it is Michael Myers. The thing is, Leatherface should have a very clear and distinct advantage, as he had an entire hour-and-a-half long movie completely dedicated to his own backstory, whereas Michael Myers had about a half an hour dedicated to his. And it somehow blew Leatherface's out of the water. Round 2. Weapon of Choice. What is a slasher without their iconic weapon? Jason Voorhees and his machete, or Freddy Krueger and his glove? So which of these two killers has the more iconic instrument of movie murder? Of course, these killers don't strictly stick to just this one weapon, but these are the weapons that they are most known for, and are often pictured or advertised with. With that being said, Michael Myers in most cases can be seen with his handy-dandy kitchen knife, and just like the man himself, simple but effective. Believe me, this guy can do some serious damage with this very plain object that most of us just casually use in our everyday lives. From stabbing to slashing to the very iconic, but not at all possible, sticking someone up against a wall with it. As for Leatherface, the main killer in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, I'll give you a brief moment to try and guess what his weapon of choice may be. Time's up. If you happen to guess the Texas or Massacre, you would shockingly be incorrect. correct. However, for those lucky few of you who managed to figure out that it was indeed a chainsaw, then bravo, well done, and a gold star for you. Yes, Leatherface is most well known for his chainsaw of the Texas variety wielding capabilities. In fact, this little power tool is so damn popular that it has taken over the name of this entire franchise, aside from just one of the movies. I'm assuming I don't have to break down what a chainsaw is, what it's used for, and what it's capable of doing to a human body. I will give you a hint though. It's as gnarly and aggressive as it sounds, and the end results are not very pretty at all. Well, you better rip the cord and rev up your chainsaw because round 2 is going to Leatherface. As much as I admire Michael's simple, everyday life solution to scratching that unscratchable itch that he has, the kitchen knife or just knives in general are just so plain and admittedly pretty boring now. Leatherface, on the other hand, while it's not completely exclusive to him or his franchise, it's not too often that you see other slashers swinging around an angry chainsaw. Round 3. Who has the better mask? And just like the last round, only this round, what would a slasher be without their iconic mask? Jason's hockey mask, Ghostface's Ghostface, or just Freddy's face. Though there have been various iterations throughout the years of these two iconic killers' masks, which of the two is superior? The best part about Michael Myers' mask is the backstory behind it. As we all know, the original 1978 Halloween was extremely low budget. When they needed a mask when crafting their killer, director John Carpenter turned to production designer Tommy Lee Wallace, who managed to find a failed attempt at a mask of William Shatner's face for his Star Trek TV series at a costume shop just down the road for under $2. To make it appear less human, Wallace widened the eye holes, removed the sideburns and eyebrows, and spray painted it white, giving us the now iconic, expressionless face of our inhumane killer known as the Shape. Once again, just like the man himself and his weapon of choice, simple and effective. Though the mask has gone through many iterations across its 11 films, the main idea has always stayed the same despite the varying degree of quality on a film-by-film basis. Leatherface, on the other hand, takes a much different approach, crafting each of his many masks throughout his long-running franchise from the flesh of his victims. This mask, and really the aesthetic of the family and franchise as a whole, was directly inspired by the sick and deranged real-world serial killer Ed Gein, who was infamously known for skinning his victims and using their remains to craft various objects. His mask changes every movie and sometimes even changes multiple times throughout the same movie. But regardless, there's no denying the unbelievably creepy and downright sickening idea behind this slasher's many faces. This round was definitely the toughest thus far, as it was extremely close. I really did go back and forth. But I'm going to have to give round 3 to Michael Myers. Leatherface's faces are far more creative and creepy, and they offer up a lot of variety across the franchise. But you just can't beat the iconography of Myers' mask. Round 4. Personality. When it comes to characters who can only speak through actions and appearances, who has the stronger personality? Michael Myers is an undeniably creepy and unsettling figure, from his slow walking to his head tilting and heavy breathing. The expressionless and seemingly unkillable figure, best described as his credit in the original movie, The Shape, was and still remains a trendsetter for the horror genre. In his more recent entries being the 2 Rob Zombie movies in Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, he has taken on a far more violent and aggressive approach that was not used too often in his 7 original appearances. Though the personality in these more brutal and unforgiving entries is still fairly well maintained, he is noticeably more aggressive. But no matter what, he will always remain the embodiment of pure evil. When it comes to Leatherface, however, he is a far more colorful character, shall we say. There is a lot more to dissect from his behavior than there is for Michael. He is said to have the mind of a young boy, maybe 5 years of age. He can't speak, He makes the masks that he wears 24/7 out of the flesh of his victims. He wears makeup, cries, takes orders, is ruthless, merciless, brutal, and seems to lack any conscience at all or knowing of right from wrong. Once again, there are multiple iterations and timelines to follow, with this character and his personality varying slightly from time to time. But in the end, he comes out the same. A big, and I mean big, angry, unpredictable, wild beast of a man, swinging around a chainsaw trying to kill you or seriously injure you, only to hang you up on a hook like slaughtered cattle so he can pull you apart, feed you to his family, and use the leftovers for arts and crafts. Again, another close one that really does come down to personal preference. And for me, I'm going to have to give this round to Leatherface. When it comes to personality, Michael Myers' cold, calculated, and heartless demeanor and ways of killing his victims is shocking, brutal, and disturbing. But in my mind, Leatherface is a far more complex character with a lot more to dissect, with themes of cannibalism, homosexuality, necrophilia, abuse, incest, and so much more. It creates one hell of a memorable character. Final round. Who will have the greater legacy? So, with all that being said and everything on the table, who is the more iconic killer? Both of them have had long-running franchises, Michael Myers with 11 films and Leatherface with 8, and both of them with more on the way in the near future. There's no denying that they are both pop culture icons and have their place on the Mount Rushmore of slashers, but who has and will have the greatest legacy overall? Throughout this video, we have determined that Michael Myers has the better mask and origin story, but Leatherface has the better weapon of choice and personality. Despite my belief that the chainsaw is indeed mightier and scarier than the knife, and that Leatherface is the more complex character, or at the very least the potential for a more complex character is there, I don't think there's any denying whatsoever that Michael Myers is likely the most iconic slasher of all time. Despite Leatherface appearing first way back in 1974, nothing has come close to the slasher boom of the 80s, I mean even up until today, that have all been directly inspired by Michael Myers and Halloween. This character set the standard, and still to this very day is the gold standard in the eyes of many, myself included. Leatherface puts up a damn good fight, but Michael Myers is known to have the much higher body count, and in my mind has the better movies, the more iconic name, mask, and overall a much bigger fan base. And there's no denying that he has, and will continue to have, a greater legacy than Leatherface. Therefore, the fifth and final round and the crown is going to go to Michael Myers. So that is all for today's video, folks. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with my winner. While you're down there, feel free to let me know what Cinema Showdown you'd like to see next. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you'd like to see more content, consider subscribing to my channel and ringing that little bell icon. That way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And as always, stay safe. Thank you so much for watching, and that's a wrap. Hey you, yeah you, if you made it this far, just know I appreciate you, and while you're here, consider hitting that subscribe button.